Malcolm-Jamal Warner did not drown. Everyone. Eddie Griffin, who apparently just risked everything by publicly stating what insiders have been whispering about for days, at least claims to have done so. Eddie seems to be saying that the official version is a fabrication, that the autopsy results were falsified, and that Malcolm's true fate was so terrible that they had to keep it quiet before the media learned about it. And from the way Eddie is speaking now, it nearly seems as though he is aware of who is responsible and is urging them to stop him. However, why did the cause of death disappear so quickly? Furthermore, who benefited from Malcolm's silence? And if Eddie wasn't present, how does he know so much? However, after Yu began to question if Malcolm's death was an accident or the last chapter of a larger story, after hearing what he had to say and considering who else might have been involved, it appears that Andy Griffith has had enough of being silent about his pal Malcolm-Jamal Warner. It appears like someone made an attempt to permanently silence him based on the current course of events. Following the announcement of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's passing, Eddie shared a tragic homage. He referred to Malcolm as a brother who fought against the Hollywood establishment, a poet and a warrior. However, Eddie is now disclosing certain facts. And it's alarming what he's exposing, because there has reportedly been a huge cover-up, that the initial autopsy revealed no drowning. And what actually happened to Malcolm, if that is the case? Who is altering the story behind the scenes? Why, therefore, is Eddie putting everything on the line to supposedly reveal the truth now? Malcolm's lungs were purportedly dry at the time of the initial autopsy. And the lungs always fill up with fluid when someone drowns, so that's a big warning sign. Doctors can determine that a patient was alive at the time of death in this way. Nothing, however, in Malcolm's instance. No liquids, no water. Therefore, it begs the question, was he gone before he even reached the water? And someone must be lying if that's the case. Furthermore, it doesn't seem strange that they're still referring to it as a drowning. Seems like a complete cover-up. Even if Malcolm was alive when he struck the water, it didn't appear like he was submerged long enough to drown, according to eyewitnesses who were there at the scene. This is where it becomes much more dubious, though. For the first 48 hours following his death, those same witnesses were allegedly forbidden from communicating with the media. No interviews, no statements, nothing. And when a gag order like that is in place, particularly immediately following a suspicious death, something is undoubtedly being concealed. According to reports, at the time when they noticed Malcolm struggling, onlookers rushed to his aid. However, it was already too late when the Red Cross from Costa Rica arrived. He was dragged out unconscious. Shortly thereafter, he was formally pronounced deceased. The problem is that the timeline doesn't stack up. According to one of the bystanders, who claims to be a doctor, he was only 200 meters away when everything went down. He hurried to assist Malcolm as soon as he realized something was amiss. "I ran into the area and got into the sea with my surfboard," he added, moving in the direction of the individual being pointed at by some beachgoers into the riptide. "I jumped down and dragged the individual out when I spotted a shadow." The time frame is yet another serious warning sign. It all doesn't stack up. There are numerous tales claiming that Malcolm spent minutes in the water. Others assert that it was much longer, and some cite someone who is attempting to save him. Others claim there were several, and there is disagreement over the precise time emergency personnel arrived. Everything appears to be exceedingly convenient, ambiguous, and inconsistent. What specifically has been stoking this online fire? Basically, it wasn't a straightforward accident. Because why is the timing so disorganized if this was only a minor accident? Now, everyone is aware that drownings can occur quickly and are typically rather silent. Eddie Griffin, meanwhile, doesn't appear to be convinced. He is allegedly steadfast in his conviction that Malcolm had already left before he even reached the water, and that someone had to have shoved him in to hide the truth. Supposedly, evidently, a doctor could have completed the task in less than a minute. To get to Malcolm? How then did Malcolm become unresponsive in a matter of seconds? It doesn't add up. Remember, though, that Malcolm was a good swimmer. This whole thing appears much more suspicious because he knew better than to plunge into dangerous seas. Additionally, when you include Eddie's statements, begin to make more sense when it is revealed that this is a questionable autopsy and that Malcolm's lungs had no fluids. As well as the rumors that his daughter was present. However, Eddie is genuinely surprised by how silent everything has been. It's almost too quiet. Clay's Beach isn't a secluded secret retreat. Every day, both locals and tourists swarm this bustling public area. How, therefore, hasn't a single image or video, even a grainy one from the scene, surfaced? That's odd enough. But stranger still is the fact that the few witnesses who have come forward seem to have read from a script because their accounts seem to have been pre-written. So, yes, we understand. It's unsettling to record someone in their last moments. And in an ideal world, everyone would respect you. But let's face it. When did the internet start following these guidelines, particularly in the presence of a star? Someone usually pulls out a phone for a variety of reasons, including astonishment, clout chasing, or simple curiosity. That's why no one did it here. However, it is said that the fact that this wasn't only a terrible accident cemented these suspicions. It was the absence of lifeguards on duty on Malcolm's death day. And here's the thing. The Caribbean Coast Guard later claimed that resource problems were to blame. However, for years, the beach had been marked as high risk by the same department, which also apparently stationed additional lifeguards there. Why then wasn't it patrolled that day? They hurried out with a statement announcing that they were now rerouting resources back to the beach, and another renowned for rough waters as soon as the news surfaced. Now, hurry up. All of this screams cover up, including the timing, the backpedaling, and the weak justifications. Additionally, it appears that Eddie may be the only one who notices it. However, what actually sent folks into a tailspin? The timing was considerably more problematic. Not all Hood. Malcolm's final podcast episode was released just 2 days before he passed away, and he talked candidly about Black identity, survival, and the never-ending struggle to overcome prejudices. In that excerpt I'm about to show you. However, one particular line is still bothering everyone who heard it. Black greatness is simply Black survival. After the news broke, that line struck a different chord. And for many people, including Eddie, it didn't seem like a coincidence. Interview 629-651 here. However, things became even more complicated. A proud Black guy, Malcolm was shamelessly outspoken about race, power, and the representation of Black men in America. Additionally, in the last podcast I'm playing, you can sense the burden of all he's been bearing. He breaks down how Black males are walled in, stigmatized, and driven to the brink simply for existing, and how the media deprives them of their humanity in another tape that reappears. Additionally, it's easy to connect the dots when you compare that to when he passed away. Eddie Griffin appears to be making the connections. Interview 724-754, the timing of Malcolm's podcast. However, is reportedly what has Eddie on edge. It fell barely 48 hours before he passed away. Furthermore, it appears that this cannot be a coincidence. He allegedly believes Malcolm was attempting to issue a warning. And now someone claims that Eddie, who is quite close to him, has been feeling a great deal of guilt over not seeing the warning signals in time to intervene and provide assistance when it was needed. And if it is true, we are left with a terrifying question. Was Malcolm being too loud to be heard? The fact that Eddie isn't treating anyone makes this situation much more unsettling. Malcolm's situation is similar to singular tragedy. He's linking it to a larger trend that appears to follow strong Black guys who don't obey Hollywood standards. Additionally, Eddie asserted that there was a lengthy history of loud black voices being silenced the instant they rebelled. He pointed out that whenever black men lose their ability to be controlled, the media and corporate elites have a tendency to demonize them. He promoted black ownership while pointing to Nipsey Hussle, who was down. He brought up Martin Lawrence, who was placed in a mental health facility after he began to oppose the system, and Dave Chappelle, who refused to sell out and ended up being humiliated for it after walking away from a multi-million-dollar agreement. Eddie is now posing the question that no one wants to voice aloud. Did Malcolm's passing contribute to the same system that silenced a voice that became too loud? Now, however, it appears that Eddie may be making himself a target. If we know anything, it's that the people in charge of Hollywood don't play when it comes to being exposed. They dislike being questioned, and they most certainly dislike having their hold challenged. Eddie is now asserting that he has a copy of the autopsy, which demonstrates that Malcolm did not perish in the sea. He's not stirring the pot. That's for sure. I'm watching him kick it over. And he's not simply running the possibility of criticism if this is accurate. He might be taking a chance. Much more than that. What actually transpired if Malcolm-Jamal Warner did not drown? These timeframes don't add up, and it appears that Eddie isn't going to back down. The entire accidental death tale is now completely exposed by a purported autopsy. The history of black voices being suppressed when they speak out, the lost video, the last podcast, and the key witnesses' silence. It doesn't seem like a cover-up at all. Smells. And if Eddie is correct, there is a worker out there. Gradually, in order to conceal the truth. So, was Malcolm's death a warning or merely a terrible accident?